What's up, everybody? Thralls Melly here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you. So today, we are going to go over the latest offering from Ribspreader, Reap Humanity. Now, this doesn't come out on the 19th. This actually came out on the 16th of January on Extreme Music. It's been formed in 2003 in both Sweden and the US. This is the 10th album from them overall. This features one ROGGA Johansson. This is one of the 45 bands he's in. I actually counted. I counted this time. I've been saying 30 bands for a while. I was off by 15 bands. That's insane.
So he says, guess who's in the band? And I said, who? And he said, ROGGA Johansson. And I said, my goodness, he's in some bands. And Nick said, guess how many bands? And to be modest, I thought it was a modest number. I said 7. And he just kept upping the count. 45? Are you kidding me? How? I don't, even if you're riffing all the time, like how? And how do you keep all that together? 45 bands.
Yeah.
I'm out.
It's absolutely insane. This band also features Jeremy Kling and Taylor Norberg, both of whom are in Inhuman Condition and The Absence. Taylor Norberg is actually in Deicide right now, too. And Jeremy Kling is a drummer for a lot of bands, actually.
Yeah.
Hell of a drummer. And again, ROGGA's busy, perpetually. Yeah, I know.
Unreal.
It's weird. But this is yet another one of his bands, and if you know ROGGA's output, you know pretty much what he loves. He is a tried and true old school death metal veteran, whether it is more American old school death metal or Swedish old school death metal. As long as it's old school, he has a good chance of being in the band. In fact, check your band right now. Make sure ROGGA's not in your band. Or if he is, that's fine. He can write riffs and do vocals. But check, he might be there right now in your band.
He might be. He's like the Hurley boy. Can I sleep on your couch? Can I eat your food? Yeah.
Could be your band.
Yep, can I be in your band? Just let me in. And he might be in your band.
For God's sakes, let him in your band. Now, I have listened to Ribspreader in the past, though I haven't really dove into a full album before, but I definitely knew what they're about, not just because ROGGA's in the band, but from what I've heard, they are more on the Swedish death metal side. You do get like little bits of like US death metal kind of peppered in there, but if I was going to compare this band to one band, it would definitely be Bloodbath. And that is never a bad thing. In fact, if anyone tells me, hey, this band sounds like Bloodbath, I'm probably going to check them out.
Right, yeah, for me that's an immediate shoo-in. This sounds like Bloodbath. Does it? And then I listen to it, and then typically it does, and I'm like, yeah, I love it. I love it already.
And this sounds like Bloodbath right from the first riff. The opening track, Skeletal Towers, comes in with a woman shrieking, and then we are right into doomy, evil, sinister melodies. It's kind of a slow build. And then it just absolutely takes off into like thrashy, high-speed death metal, lots of tremolo riffs, blast beats. I mean, it's checking off all the boxes. And throughout this album, that is exactly what it does. Like, it stays pretty much in its lane, but its lane has been paved by amazing bands, Dismember, Entombed, you know, tons of killer ones. And, I mean, it kind of stays right with it, like, even down to the vocal choices from ROGGA. He kind of wavers back and forth between, do I like Bloodbath with Åkerfeldt, or do I like Bloodbath with Peter Tägtgren? I like both. And, you know, if his answer is both, he's right. Honestly, he kind of sounds like the guy from Revolting or Paganizer. It's probably a good reason for that.
But what's cool is you can tell which camp he's drawing from. Like, there's a very obvious shift when he does it.
Yeah. The higher screams are definitely Tägtgren. Like, I mean, instant, like that high shriek that he can do is absolutely amazing, especially if you see it live. And, yeah, the low gutturals are 100% old Åkerfeldt. And, I mean, again, like, they kind of check off all the boxes on here. Like, this is riff after riff, lots of great tremolo riffs. Like, sinister, dark, evil, but also just aggressive as hell. And I think that is kind of large in part also to the drum work on here, because Jeremy must have put a hit out on his kit.
Yeah, he's beating the piss out of those drums, and quite well, I might add. Like, a lot of the riffing is good, very entertaining. There's great riffing all over the record. It's very meat and potatoes, though, as far as the riffing is concerned, but the drum work is what sets it all off.
Yeah, and when it comes down to, like, the additional hooks on it, I think this is where Taylor really adds a lot. There's a lot of just great, creepy melodies on top of riffs. Like the title track, like Breeding Vermin, the song Further Into Decay has great lead melodies as well as an actual solo on it. And it's kind of cool how the lead melodies kind of work into that solo.
Yeah.
He sets a lot of the mood in here, like when the song needs to sound more sinister and more dark rather than just being like balls out aggressive, which they have that in spades on every track. He adds like this layer of just sort of spookiness to it, and I kind of dig that. It's kind of like Jeff Hanneman. Like when Slayer needed a spooky melody, Jeff Hanneman was the guy to do it. Carrie could shug your face off. He still can. He probably will this year when we go over that album. But I like that, sort of vibe on here because it adds a lot to this. Because if you strip that back, what you still have is just awesome, aggressive riffing. But it's that extra additional melody, I think, that really kind of helps it stand out a bit.
Well, a lot of these songs have faster moments to them. They also have their fair share of slow, groovy heaviness. The song Count Damnation is a beast of a song. Very akin to Morbid Angel.
Yeah, honestly, kind of following that, Bloodbath thing where generally there's almost always one song that's a little bit Morbid Angel on every Bloodbath album. It kind of follows that suit. Like this is their Mock the Cross, or this is their No God Before Me. It has that vibe. It's slow, plotting. There's a really good squealy riff in it. Like, whoever this Count is, he clearly visited where the slime live.
The other songs that also have slower groove in them, at least, like Breeding Vermin and Further Into Decay, both of those implore definite heavy, chuggy moments.
Yeah, and, I mean, for the most part, like, I would say a good chunk of this just really stays high octane. Like, there are moments where they kind of lure you in, where you think you're going to get, like, a more doomy, slow, kind of plotting song. Namely Human Fodder. Human Fodder opens up with like a clean guitar, kind of builds up in this sort of spooky vibe. It's very sinister sounding, and then it just explodes right into tremolos and blasts. And, it's kind of what you get in the rest of the album, but I feel like there's like a little bit of a bait and switch. But when they do kind of slow down, I really like it because generally you get some of the heaviest riffs of the album. Like when it comes down to the chuggy breakdowns and groovy pockets, they are just massive sounding. But B, they generally kind of come at the same spot. Something I noticed listening to this album, as soon as the groove hits, that's almost always the chorus.
Yeah.
And while that kind of got to be like a predictable trope, generally those choruses were pretty damn awesome, and I can't argue with good riffs because I'll lose that argument every time.
Yeah, I don't actually have a lot of complaints for most of these songs. Something else I noticed, though, is oftentimes the breakdowns were sacrificed for just a heavy riff in the song. There actually weren't too many moments where I would consider there to be an actual breakdown, except for in As the Ghouls Are Summoned. That one had a notable breakdown.
Yeah, it's noticeably more syncopated. Like, there's a lot of groovy pockets. I don't feel like they hold on to them very long. And when it came to, like, standout ones that weren't the chorus, I couldn't find as many generally because, they would kind of abandon that and get back to the faster sections, which I don't have a problem with either. But I really like the opening on the title track. There's this cool off-time groove, and I do like the fact that that song stays a little bit groovier, too. There's some great, like, low-end tremolo harmonies on there, and almost all of the tremolos are, like, really harmonized, and I really dig that. They just sound bigger and beefier. That song's got a big old-school bite to it with some good D-beat sections on it. And A Fleshless Gathering has this awesome, what I would call, like, an old-school death harmony on it, like something that could have been pulled right from Leprosy or Scream Bloody Gore. And it's cool because it repeats very often. It kind of goes back and forth between the faster, blasty sections and comes back to this, like, really epic, just kind of evil-sounding hook.
And there are a lot of hooks. Most of the choruses, albeit, that's when the groove happens, most, if not all, the choruses are actually very hooky, very catchy. Between melodies and harmonies, like, it gets stuck there. And although the breakdowns are either sacrificed or elongated, the hooks are there long enough in the choruses to have you catch on to something.
As for the overall sound of this, I think the production's pretty decent. Like the guitars have a good bite to them. They don't have like a tremendous amount of like sizzle that you would hear in like, like the more raw sounding HM2 tone, but they're beefy and the riffs come out very clearly. They're, again, very hooky. My issue on here in terms of production is there's a little bit of compression in kind of just two spots.
Yep.
The drums sound a bit compressed, I will say.
Slightly. It's you have to really like listen for it.
Yeah. And the vocals sound oddly compressed on like the entire album, honestly. Yeah. There are moments where they kind of drop out to like drum and bass grooves and you have like a vocal over it and it feels like it just needs like a touch of reverb. And even on that intro to Human Fodder where they kind of open up with a clean tone, it's also very compressed. That's a moment where I think like a little bit of reverb, make it echo, make it sound like it was recorded in a tomb. I think that would have like a little bit more effect there.
Yeah, make it a little bit more natural sounding because that's also the only time where that kind of opening appears. If it were me, I would want that moment to both stand out more and fill the space.
Yeah, it just feels a little too empty in that spot. And as far as like negatives on here, I mean, there are a couple, I brought up the fact that the breakdowns, when they happen, they don't hang out very long. There were a couple of breakdowns in here where I was like, dude, just dry hump that for a little bit.
Yep.
And the fact that, again, Taylor adds a lot of cool melodies on top of them, like it makes them kind of extra bitey. And the other one is the last track, Shrouded in Despair, which is a closing instrumental, and it kind of just feels like a leftover riff that they couldn't find a home for. Like, not really. Like, they built a doghouse for it.
Well, that, and even with that being a leftover riff, like, it didn't start out that way either. It starts out with a high-pitched squeal and then some spoken word under just chugs. And, like, I think that if you were going to do an instrumental like they did, you could have elongated that chug and the speech underneath it instead of then adding a moment where there was an actual riff and a drum beat. Like,
yeah,
it felt a little disjointed.
It felt like an afterthought.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this thing didn't quite make 32 minutes. We'll just pepper on this 2.5 minute thing. This will get us over to the 35-minute mark. I don't know. It does feel kind of extra on there. It's not as though it's bad. It's just like, I feel like this is part of another song that just didn't get finished.
Yeah. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this record 4 stars. I really dug it. I found 85% of these songs to be really, really good. Very entertaining. The riffing is great. I love the low-end tremolo. Just, like, there's something about that to me that just gives it a more evil and sinister and foreboding feel. Versus bands that sometimes incorporate the higher level tremolo register. Like, I just like the low end. It reminds me a lot of the stuff that, like, Fossilization does.
Yeah.
It just makes it all the more grimy. Tons of groove in here. Tons of chuggy moments. Everybody that knows me knows that I love chuggy grooves. I mean, it's just a thing in death metal that I find to be super awesome because most of the time when a good chug is executed, it's just got a real punch behind it, and that's definitely in here. This thing is full of catchy hooks. The harmonies are awesome. And the way they pepper them in at various points, sometimes they'll make them as a tag, sometimes they'll make them as a lead-in. It just sounds gross. Vocally, I think it's good. The drum work is awesome. I don't have a whole lot of complaints except for the last 2 songs. I just kind of thought they missed the mark, especially the instrumental. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But overall, I thought it was a good listen. If you're a fan of Bloodbath, definitely. Entombed, Dismember, Morbid Angel, things of that nature. If you're fans of those kind of bands, I would definitely recommend checking this out.
I'm going to go with a 3.5. I really dig this one. Like, this is honestly kind of what I expected from ROGGA, which is never a bad thing. And if you like any one of his 45 bands, this is, kind of what he does. Like, he loves riffs and just old school death metal, and he does it really well. A lot. But this one, I mean, it feels very transparent about, like, the Bloodbath worship. Like, this is kind of a Bloodbath album without the Bloodbath logo on it. It's got riffs, there's tons of melody on here, but it never kind of borders on melodic death metal at all. It stays sinister and dark. It's aggressive as hell. And again, like Jeremy's drum work on here, like, dude, I hope the kid survived. A lot of these songs are very explosive, lots of big, groovy, chuggy sections, and again, those low-end tremolos. I mean, they just know how to write sinister, heavy songs. And while, again, all of this is very familiar, not only if you're like a big Bloodbath fan, but also, big fan of ROGGA's work, it's still really well executed. And he knows how to write killer riffs. Like, I can't fault him. Like, I guess he's got so many that he needs 45 bands to get them all out there.
Right. How can you suck at writing riffs if you're in 45 bands?
Yeah. I don't think that's possible. Like, no one would want you. You'd be in negative 45 bands. But that is not the case. And yeah, this is just solid Swedish death metal. Pretty much, yeah. If you like Bloodbath, you like Dismember, Entombed, again, any one of ROGGA's bands, and like a little bit of like U.S. death metal in there too, like namely Morbid Angel and a little bit of Cannibal Corpse. Yeah, you'll probably dig this. This is just riffs and aggression and good catchy songs. What more could you want from a death metal album? Check this one out. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel, but thrallsmetal.com is where you go to get Thralls Metal stuff. We have new shirts. We have old shirts that are discounted if we have them in your size. And we also have hats. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, that is where to find it, and it is the link down below.
And as you know, tons of things going on at Thralls of Metal. We're in the beginning of the year, so we've got tons of reviews coming. We've got Nick's States of Metal. We got What's John Jammin coming back. We got discography rankings. Black Dahlia Murder is coming up next, and then the Almighty Meshuggah, which is gonna suck to rank, as well as the retro reviews. Just tons of stuff going on, and we do it for one reason. It's because of you guys. Thank you to all of you for continuing to show up and support us and talk to us, which makes no sense to us. I wouldn't do it. The only reason I'm talking to this guy now is because I'm in Thralls of Metal. Anyway, thank you guys. We appreciate your support and love. It means the world to us. This has become a gigantic part of our lives. I don't know where I would be without Thralls of Metal. Probably bored and working somewhere.
Probably still listening to metal, though.
Probably. I've been listening to metal for the last, 29, 30 years, so I mean, I don't think I'm gonna wane from that at any time.
Probably not. Yeah, you guys absolutely rule, and we still love doing this, and again, tons of stuff coming, so definitely stay tuned. So one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.